Holy shit. Fate Apocrypha. The first episode finally came out, and I'm not gonna lie, that was hype as fuck. Yo, this first episode of Fate Apocrypha was really, really good. I mean, don't get me wrong. I know that Fate is a great series. I know it's very notable. It's very memorable as well, and holds up very, very well in today's standards of anime. But when it came down to Fate Apocrypha being a spin-off, honestly, I wasn't expecting it to be as good as quite as the others, but it's actually really good. I mean, I've only seen the synopsis from this series. I haven't seen any PVs, so I was essentially going into this series blind, necessarily. However, the only thing I knew about it was just the general synopsis, like I just stated before. Basically, this is an alternative version of the Fate Stay Night series, into which it's a parallel world. It's a different alternate timeline compared to the original Fate Stay Night, into which we have two teams going up against each other, one faction of black and one faction of red. When it came down to the first 4 minutes of this episode of Fate Apocrypha, my expectations were like I stated before, I knew this was Fate, I knew I was jumping into a Fate series, but I didn't expect it to be, this fucking good. Holy shit, the animation was cool. The story is very interesting compared to how the original Fate Stay Night played out. And just, the first 4 minutes of this episode was just hype as fuck. Definitely, this is going to be anime of the season contender right here for the summer season of anime. Seriously, it is. Fate Apocrypha, really good episode so far. The first 4 minutes within this episode, yo, it's just go check it out. Just go check it out, cause oh my god, when you have the red and black factions just going up against each other and going all out between one another. You have Saber of red, Saber of black, and various other characters as well make an appearance, including also, I don't really know if it's called Saber. I don't really know if this person is the original Saber, but I think her class is under the inspiration of Joan of Arc. So yeah, hopefully you guys saw her in this episode, because oh my god, she looks bae as fuck, and holy crap, oh, the animation in this episode and just the fights that were playing out, it was so cool. It was really, really cool. And I'm also playing Fate Grand Order on the side just to pass the time. And there's also various other characters in which I kind of saw in this episode as well, in which I was like, ah, it's this guy or this girl, So it seems like Fate Grand Order characters are also going to appear in Fate Apocrypha as well. So that is very interesting. So if you want to learn more about the characters, maybe even pick up the game. It's free. Mainly, this first episode was just giving us some information regarding some of the characters that we will be seeing, like the factions, and also it seems like our main character, I'm not really sure actually who is in fact the main character of, the series. I don't really know if it is going to focus on one person specifically, but it does seem that this big burly dude who goes by the name of Go Lion seems to be getting the most screen time as far as what we know of, as he has now become a master and takes Saber of Red under his wing. He summons her, and this is where we are going to see the red faction go up against the black faction. Now, I'm not really going to say that, either side is good nor bad, honestly, because when it comes down to the two factions, they are kind of split between. They're more or less the same. I don't really think there is a evil faction, so to speak, but if you want to classify a faction as evil, you could probably say that the black faction is probably the evil one out of the entire group, because red as a color represents passion or anger, while black, on the other hand, resembles, evil, corruptedness, just stuff like that nature. So most likely the evil sort of group within this series is going to be the faction of black, and the good quote-unquote faction is going to be the faction of red. But honestly, when it comes down to my personal opinion, it seems like mainly the motives of these, factions are split between. And that was kind of made apparent in the beginning of this episode, as it was stated that this is a battle between, servants trying to accomplish their wishes, so to speak. So there's really no good or bad here. It's just simply doing things in order to get shit done for what you want to accomplish. Which makes it interesting because each character has their own sort of, motive as to what they want to accomplish, and therefore, if they have, goals like the other servants, they will join the faction or whatnot. But it's only based on 7 people per faction, and there's 2 factions. So there's going to be about 14 servants fighting it off between one another. Now, one of the characters that we actually got introduced, which I thought was very, very cool, was, I believe his name was, Draco? Excuse me, wipe that from your memory. Darnik, that was the name of the character. Darnik, I found, was kind of interesting within this episode, because Darnik resembles Vlad the Impaler, from my perspective on just his ability, what he's capable of in general, because, honestly, he fucking impaled some civilians. Halfway in the episode, there were people who were impaled on spikes. And if we go back in history, someone who we know did shit like that was Vlad the Impaler. He was a torturer of sorts, And when it comes to Fate Stay Night, it takes inspiration off of notable figures throughout history. Like, how Saber is kind of like, a representation of King Arthur, or how Ryder is a representation of Alexander the Great. And also like how Ryder is like Alexander the Great, Characters like that, who take inspiration off of historical figures from, time, make an appearance in fiction, like that to me is kind of cool. I really dig the whole inspiration and the thought process of how these characters came to be. So, seeing that Darnik, I guess, is a representation of Vlad the Impaler is fucking beast. Also, something that I'm very curious as well is that we actually have a Shiro in this parallel world as well, who is kind of like in control of the church from what I'm aware of, and this Shiro character actually happens to have white hair and tan skin. Now, doesn't this sound familiar? Not really Shiro from Fate Stay Night, but if you guys have seen Fate Zero, you will know that there is a connection between Archer and Shiro. But yeah, just seeing that there's another Shiro in this world is kind of interesting. So I'm curious as to the overall role that this Shiro is going to have within Fate Apocrypha. So yeah, when it comes down to the overall animation, the animation looks awesome. It's actually not done by Ufotable, mind you, but it's actually done by A1 Pictures, and I think they are actually doing a very good job with this so far, and I'm curious to see how the series is going to progress later down the line, because so far, when it comes to the story of Fate Apocrypha, I'm very interested as to see what it's going to become later down the line, and from judging from the first 4 minutes of the show, that seemed to, or of this episode, that seemed to take place within the future. So while after those 4 minutes were done with, we pretty much got, the world building and whatnot. So to see what comes to be before we get to that point in which we saw the first 4 minutes of, the episode, is going to be very neat to see, especially how everything plays out and how Joan of Arc is going to play a role in all this, because as far as I know, I don't even know if the Joan of Arc is actually, involved with any of the factions to begin with. It might just be its own, own character. I really don't know. So I'm very curious as to how the series is going to wrap up and just, progress as we get further and further into the series. The soundtrack, great soundtrack. I mean, what's not to love? It's Fate. More Fate is great. Hey, that rhymed. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, what you guys thought about this first episode of Fate Apocrypha. I was originally going to do a live reaction to this series, but ultimately my recording ended up failing, so I had to do a review. But in the future, do expect live reactions to actually come out unless there is something else that happens during the recording process, in which I'm prevented, such as this one. But most likely I'm going to be doing more live reactions for Fate Apocrypha in the future, so stay tuned for that. Be sure to give this video a big thumbs up if you enjoyed my first impressions. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and hit that red subscribe button down below as well if you want to stay updated to my future content on this channel, if you are viewing it for the very first time and wish to see more content from me. That about does it for this video, everyone. Thank you all for watching. I'll catch you all in the next one.